Students were sure rereading worked. A week later, the passage they'd reread was the one they remembered least. Not laziness, a broken gauge, and the fix fits on one blank page. If you've ever reread a chapter and felt it settle into place, this experiment was built to measure that feeling and to check whether it was telling the truth. Washington University, 2006. Henry Roediger and Jeff Karpicke ran a study so plain it barely looks like an experiment. Students read short factual passages, sea otters, the sun, 2 passages each. And here's the elegant part. Every student used both methods. One passage they read again, every word in front of them, nothing to dredge up from memory, the comfortable condition. The other passage they never saw again. Instead, a blank sheet and one instruction. Write down everything you can remember. No feedback, no answer key. Just the raw effort of retrieval. Be honest about which method you'd rather use. Rereading feels productive. The words flow, everything looks familiar, your eyes glide. Testing yourself feels like failure in slow motion. Every blank you can't fill is a small humiliation. One more detail before the results. Every student predicted how much they'd remember 1 week out. Keep those predictions in mind. They're where this story's actually headed. 5 minutes after the final session, a third of the students took the test. The passage they'd reread, 81% of the ideas recalled. The passage they'd tested themselves on, 75. Rereading won by a real, measurable margin. This is the part people skip when they retell this study. Rereading did not lose. At 5 minutes, it was genuinely better. If your exam were held immediately, rereading would be the right call. Hold on to that. It matters later. Before the delayed scores come in, run the experiment on yourself. 2 passages, one you reread, one you fought back from a blank page. Which one survives a week? Notice which answer feels true. That feeling, its confidence, its smoothness, is the real subject of this study. But other students took the exact same test 2 days later. Now the reread passage, 54%. The self-tested passage, 68%. The gap didn't just close, it flipped. 14 points in the other direction. 2 days is not an exotic timescale. It's the distance between a Tuesday night study session and a Thursday exam. 2 days is where real life happens. One more delay to test, 7 days. The timescale of actual exams. At 1 week, the collapse completed. The reread passage, 42%. The self-tested one, 56%. The method that felt smooth, comfortable, confident, left students with the least. Read it twice, and a week later, you hold the least. Read it once and wrestle it back from a blank page, and you hold the most. The second reading, the one that felt like consolidation, was the weaker investment. You might be assembling objections. Here's the strongest. Maybe testing only wins because it's harder work. Of course, effort beats comfort. But notice what that concedes. The effort is the treatment. Same student, same material, same number of sessions. Only the kind of mental work differed. Now, those predictions the students wrote down. Time to open the envelope. Repeated studying had inflated confidence. Students predicted they'd remember the reread passage best, the very condition heading for the worst 1 week recall. The method they trusted most was the one that held the least. The feeling of knowing and the fact of knowing had come apart. Sit with how strange that is. These weren't careless students. They were undergraduates at a selective university. People whose study habits had been rewarded their entire lives. Their memory wasn't failing them. Their gauge of their memory was. And this is not a lab curiosity. It's every exam crammed by rereading the textbook. Every interview prepped by scrolling your notes one more time. Every presentation you felt ready for. Right up until you stood up. The gauge you trust most fails exactly when you need it most. Second objection, maybe that single test wasn't the active ingredient. Maybe one comparison got lucky. They thought of that. So they ran a second, larger experiment with a sharper question. If testing is doing the work, does more testing mean more memory? 180 new students, 3 regimens. Study 4 times. Study 3 times, test once. Or study once, test 3 times. 1 week later, 40%, 56, and 61. More testing, more memory. Though the single biggest jump came from the very first test. And at 5 minutes, that ranking ran in the opposite direction. The pure studiers led again. You've now seen this shape twice. The short-term signal points one way, the long-term result points the other. That's not coincidence. That's a pattern pointing straight at a mechanism. Here it is. Your brain judges learning by fluency, how smoothly the material runs through your mind right now. That reading is honest. The error is the extrapolation. Your brain takes a true short-term signal and projects it a week into the future. That projection is where the illusion lives. Confidence is built on fluency, and fluency peaks the moment you finish reading. Retention is built on retrieval effort, and it pays out days later. 2 different inputs, 2 different curves, and time pulls them apart. The second pass feels smoother than the first, but smoothness measures familiarity, and in the moment, fluency is the only readout your brain gives you. You can't feel the difference from the inside, so the fix can't be a feeling. It has to be a procedure. Before you build a routine on one paper, be exact about what it proved. Prose passages, free recall, delays up to a week, 1 university. Classroom studies since have backed it at scale. How far it stretches to very complex skills is still being argued. The sturdiest finding stands, the gap between confidence and recall. So what do you do with this? The fix is almost insultingly simple, and the study contains it. The tested students got no feedback, no grades, no answer key, and still outperformed. The active ingredient is the act of retrieval itself. Check your answers afterward, and the effect grows stronger still. Finished a chapter? Before you reread anything, write down every idea you can recall on a blank page. Learning a language? Produce the word before you flip the card. Learning to code? Shut the documentation and rebuild the function. The blank page is not the test of the method. It is the method. And calibrate your expectations, because this will feel wrong. Retrieval feels like failing while it works. Rereading feels like mastery while it fades. If a study method feels smooth and reassuring, that smoothness is not evidence it's working. It's the exact signal this study caught lying about the future. One thing this experiment can't tell you: when to retrieve. Test yourself too soon, and it's trivially easy. Too late, and the memory's gone. Somewhere between sits a curve, forgetting itself, mapped in a lab over a century ago. And timing your retrieval against it is where the real leverage hides. That's where we're going next. Before you go, close your eyes and take the reading. One question: why did rereading lose? Until then, remember the gauge. Smooth as a feeling, learned as a measurement. Remember, hard by design.